Okay. Well, the track by them that I want you to check out today is called St. Joe on the School Bus. It's always the first place I look when I'm trying to locate St. Joe. So,
Well, it's better than having Helio down the schoolyard because that was against the law. What the mum was- Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Les Audiophiles. Je m'appelle Jean, and he's Andy.
we.
Academic inspiration, you gave me none, but you were Michael the lover, the fighter that won. But now just look at me as I'm looking down at you. No, I'm not being flash, it's what I'm built to do. More on that later. But first, we have a track to listen to, selected by brother Andy. Andy, what is in store for all the people today?
Well, we are going to head to the playground today. Marcy Playground, to be specific. Have you ever heard of that band before?
It's ringing a really, really faint bell, and I don't know why. 'Cause I couldn't
Interesting.
say that
Okay.
I know what they've put out. I don't know what they sound like, but just the name kind of rings a really faint bell.
Okay. Well, the track by them that I want you to check out today is called St. Joe on the School Bus. It's always the first place I look when I'm trying to locate St. Joe. So,
Well, it's better than having Helio down the schoolyard because that was against the law. What the mum saw. Anyway, yeah, St. Joe in the school bus. Okay,
yeah, yeah. So please go off, check this thing out, and come back and let me know what you've made of it.
will do.
St. Joe, he said he's never been dressed up like a woman. St. Joe, they said your dad was gay. They said your mom, she's a whore. They said until you were raw, yeah. And they said your mom, she's a bore. And they made her beg them for more. Oh man. Aunt Miriam, Aunt Miriam, Aunt Miriam says they have the darkness there in their
Okay, we're a third way through this. Interesting start. Fairly basic in terms of music. It does very, very strongly remind me of that band from Seattle that I shan't mention. This is definitely post grunge. Yeah, interesting. The lyrics. So you have this Saint Joe from the title. The sounds from the lyrics that I picture it on a school bus, and even like the band's got the name playground. So it's school bullying. That's what it sounds like. It's all about him never being dressed up like a woman. It's really odd thing to say, but his dad's gay and his mum's a whore. I mean, um, if that was screeched at about three times the speed with a few Spanish words bunged in, it'd be a typical Pixies song. But here it's definitely sounds like bullying. Um, and then we go into guessing the chorus. It sounds even more like a certain song by a certain band that I won't mention. It almost goes into it like a couple of times, but doesn't quite. But it's about Aunt Mary. And I guess from like Saint Joe, I mean, is that ironic because he's a martyr because he puts up with it all? And Aunt Mary and Joseph. There's a few religious things going on here, almost like all over the Catholic school as well. Turn the other cheek and all that shite. Which it says something about. She says they have the darkness in their eyes. I wonder if that's like evil eye. Again, sort of religious sort of view on these little shits. Okay, let's see how it goes. Oh, can I just say that the bobbing plastic head in the middle that looks like it's been chewed by the family dog. It just reminds me of a very, very weather-beaten John Ritter. Anyway.
St. Joe, he said he's never been made up like a woman. St. Joe, the time is coming when Mary never will return. Yeah, Mary never will come back. Yeah, Mary never will return. Oh, Mary, please come home. Oh, my. Yeah, Mary. Yeah, Mary. Yeah, Mary says they have the darkness there in their eyes.
Didn't quite catch that. What about the last bit that he sung? Hey, interesting. That last bit, yeah. The darkness there. Family disease, darkness in their minds. Yeah, it's sort of intriguing, these lyrics. You wonder, because he's referring to Aunt Mary all the time, or if she is the sort of the only family that St. Joe has, and gay dad and poor mum have buggered off, perhaps. And that's why he says about her never will return, never, she's not coming back, please come back. There's a genuine fear, again, maybe a taunt. Yeah, family disease, darkness in their minds. Again, it sounds like Ambrose says, yes, it sounds like a religious thing, almost like possession or something. Whereas we know that bullying is usually made by scared people. But not everyone who's scared bullies. It's something where they'll make themselves feel better, safer, stronger by taking out on others, their little shits. Yeah, interesting song. But musically, was okay, didn't grab me, but intriguing lyrics. So yeah, we have to find out more. Let's go back and find out from the man himself, Andy.
All right, so you're back. Yeah, it's not time to board the school bus, but it's certainly time to vacate the playground and come in from recess, John. What did you think of this track?
So I know that I have previously banged on about my post-grunge grudge, with the plethora of grunge-light music seemingly harvested from petri dishes marked Cobain by numbers and foisted on the UK's listening public via American record labels. Funny enough, it just struck me listening to this, and it's glaringly obvious, but I never thought about this before, that the situation was probably 10 times worse back in the States. You'd have really had to pound the airwaves for gold trying to find the songs that were, of that genre,
Yeah,
derivative or not, but still of value. And I guess that's all in the ear of the beholder. But yeah, just that thought struck me straight away. So I will try to avoid mentioning the N word, not that word, but the other N word. But the opening moments do remind me of some track that I can't quite remember. Oh well, never mind. We're firmly in a post-grunge territory here, with a really cool, relaxed, almost comfortable vibe coming from the drums and the bass and the chugging guitar. In chirps your man with a voice exactly as you'd expect. Also, I must mention that the nodding head in the video thumbnail reminds me of a very weather-beaten John Ritter, Three's Company. Just
yes,
looks
may he
like
rest in peace.
a model of him that's been chewed by the dog or something. That's it. And he always makes me smile just thinking about it. Anyway, the lyrics mention Saint Joe and what seems to be a litany of abuse. Something about not dressing as a woman, about their dad being gay, their mum's a whore. Now, if this had been screeched out at 3 times the pace with some Spanish words thrown in, it would be a reasonable Pixies song. Here, however, it's not. And with the title referring to on the school bus and playground in the band's name, it just sounds like bullying. Now, I don't know if the saint in the character's name is reference to their endurance of abuse, martyr-like, whether it's a sardonic nickname put upon them. But if so, I'm thinking with the school theme, it just pings into my head for no reason. Catholic school, I don't know why. The other thing I'm thinking as well, and I guess this is more as you get older. I don't think I ever thought this though, but I never was down with the turn the other cheek philosophy. I think it just enables people to be oppressed. I know that sounds very Marxist, opium of the masses and all that, but I went through a school system that actively promoted and encouraged bullying. Reading pupils within our school for those other great institutions of the British Empire that also existed through privilege, prejudice, and predomination. So yeah, I had a gut full of it. Yeah, so it was just interesting. Just made me think about that. And I'll circle back on something about that later as well. So we get to a kind of chorus, and in comes Aunt Mary. And initially, I was hearing Aunt Mary, but I was thinking Aunt May from Spider-Man. I don't know why, but I was. I think I was going to see one recently. But there more religious imagery if Joe was Joseph. Not to say there's that relationship, but again, it's a sort of biblical, sort of scene. Here, the guitar takes a turn into something even more strongly resembling the third track of the second album of the band I will not mention, as you are. She says, oh, Mary, sorry, oh, Mary. And she says they have the darkness in their eyes. And I wonder if this refers to it made me think straight away of like the evil eye. And again, it's that kind of almost Mediterranean or Latin American religious Catholic. Again, it's all those things are just pinging in my
Yeah.
head through very few words, but it's there. We go to second verse. Joe hasn't been made up like a woman. Um, is he denying these taunts, or is it actually that their bullying has entered a physical phase where they're holding him down and putting on makeup and stuff? It also mentions Mary not coming back. Again, could this be a taunt, or is this reflection of a genuine fear in his mind? She's mentioned a lot, and it's only his parents in the first verse, and I'm wondering if they're not around and she's the primary sort of family that he said Joe has. It's just really weird, actually, thinking about it. So you have that thing about he's not dressed like a woman, his dad's gay, mum's a whore, he's never been made up like a woman. There's some sort of variations on sexual identity as well. It's an interesting tact for the abusers stroke bullies to take. Whether that's the case nowadays, it was just normally big nose was good enough to bully someone, or their height or whatever. It's just
Yeah.
interesting that they take on those particular tacks.
It from my experience, I don't know, it probably similar, right? I don't see why it wouldn't be, but maybe you can school me on that. But like, it depends on the age that you're talking about, right? And when the taunting's taking place, I would say, K through 5 or K through 6. Yeah. Hey, fatso. Hey, big nose. Hey, four eyes. Hey, big head. That shit is. But when you're at an age where you're grappling with your own sexual discovery, identification, and designation, and you realize that the confusion around that can be weaponized against people, then it becomes the F word, allusions to you preferring the same sex, or being your sexuality being amorphous or something like that. You're not mature enough to realize that that's stupid, first of all, and not right. But that's the age where you start to weaponize this, because honestly it's an indicator of your own insecurity, or this foundation you're standing on is not yet solidified yet, so it can be weaponized against certain people. And I think that is what this is, like a middle school, early high school probably kind of situation.
Interesting. I can't remember anyone at my school being bullied or taunted because of their sexuality.
Yeah, good.
And
You mean
now,
that you're a more
and
progressive?
now, no, no, not at all.
Well,
And I went to a single sex school. It just, for some reason, I can't remember it now, whether it did happen or and I never witnessed it or whatever, but I just don't remember that being one of the issues. Every fucking thing else was,
was
but I
there
don't
was there
remember that
was
being the
there ever
case.
like a major stigma around that in recent history in your country? Because over here, the right to marry didn't even happen until the 2000 teens. So for me growing up, hearing that kind of stuff levied against one another was unfortunately and very, very common.
Yeah, yeah, I know it still was back then, definitely. I mean,
Okay.
it was
Okay.
huge, racism, sexism, homophobia, all that stuff was very healthily cooking away within
Okay.
the young minds
Sure.
of the people I went to school with. Yeah. But I just don't remember it being one of the topics. Which
Mm.
is really weird because we were at a single sex school.
Yeah, yeah,
You'd
exactly.
have thought that's one of the first things, but I just don't, and it may have occurred, but I just don't remember it. Anyway, just thought it was interesting that those things, but again, you say it must maybe at a certain age it's more commonplace. So let's go back to the song. The chorus, so if it's repeated, and then we get a very short term with the guitars kind of slightly expanding on the chorus riff, but it, you know, he's no Eddie Van Halen. Thank God. It's just pleasant. It's kind of like the music side of this track is very laid back and very sort of, whereas the vocals, although again they're delivered in a fairly relaxed way, but the content has got more tension to it, which again is interesting. Then we go back to the Up Mary a bit, and he changes up the last bits for the very last section of the song. So they have darkness there, which did appear before. They have the family disease. I had to bring this back to a show. The family disease, they have the darkness there in their minds. And I said before, he said in their eyes. So I'm not sure whose family the singer's referring to, whether it's St. Joe's family and Mary's referring to his own family having this disease. It's interesting. Darkness in their minds kind of sounds a bit like possession to me. As it goes to evil eye, expansion on that, this sort of religious idea of evil. I don't know whether it lets people off the hook a bit, saying things. So this sort of religious idea of evil, the devil made me do it, blah blah blah. It's the shit in, we all know that bullies, as you said previously, are basically just scared little
Yeah.
shits. But that doesn't let them off the hook. So yeah, I thought it was a decent song. I thought musically it didn't grab me. There was nothing wrong with it. It's very it was pretty simple, but really nice sound to it. One that I heard before, but still enjoyed it. I just thought the lyrics were really intriguing.
Yeah.
And it sort of got my attention because of that.
Excellent. Yeah, yeah, it is interesting subject matter, especially from not exclusive to, but especially from an American standpoint. I'll get into that a little bit later too. Um, it's interesting you mentioned the N band. We'll say that because I don't even want to play with the N word, what that might suggest, but the N band. Because I think a lot of times what every band that was trying to reproduce was Smells Like Teen Spirit or Rape Me or any of these more like driving Nirvana songs. These guys always seem to want to tap into
As
Polly
you are.
or Dumb, songs like that were the more subdued, I don't
Yeah.
want to say intellectual, but introspective type songs from Nirvana. So
That's
that is,
interesting, actually. That's probably why it appealed to me. It's on a musical level. It was just I liked it. I was, but I'd say like All Apologies is my favorite Nirvana song.
yeah,
Said it now,
yeah, 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 yeah.
the N word, but it is. So
Let's look.
so yeah, that probably makes more sense
Yeah,
than
and I think for that makes it to me more palatable because 85% of the bands that, as you rightly put, were inundating the radio airways were all trying to capture, Smells Like Teen Spirit and similar songs from those guys, but not many were doing this sound that Nirvana did. And these guys, I think, did it and did it pretty well. Although I don't think that they're a complete pastiche of
no.
what Nirvana was trying to do with some of that stuff either. So, but yeah, let's get into the band here. Marcy Playground. They are an American alternative rock band consisting of three members: John Wozniak on guitar and lead vocals, Dylan Keefe on bass, and Shlomi Lavi on drums. So there's something else that they kind of have in common with the end band. Although Pat Smear, I guess you could say, was a member at one point. The band is named after the Marcy Open School in Minneapolis, which is the alternative school John Wozniak attended. He chose the name because many of his songs were inspired by his childhood. So yeah, you kind of pieced that together without knowing that. The playground in the name, and yeah, it all harkens back to youth for sure. They emerged in the late 90s, and their influences include David Bowie, Paul Simon, Neil Young, Van Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, Sid Barrett of Pink Floyd, Nirvana, Wham, and the Beatles. So interesting, and some excellent choices for influences there. After attending the
Wham.
yeah, Wham, I know, right? Exactly. You didn't hear Wham in that? I know I didn't. Yeah, you're right. Wham. Um, After attending the Evergreen State College for 2 years, Wozniak moved to New York in order to work with multi-instrumentalist producer Jared Cutler, who John had known from suburban Philadelphia. Jared believed in John's songwriting talent and put together money with his cousin Jeff White in order to pay for and produce the duo, along with studio musician Glenn Braver, who was their bassist at the time, to record at Sabella Recording Studios in nearby Roslyn, New York. After hearing the two records worth of material Jared produced of John's songs, Capitol Records became interested in the music, Kurt Rosenwinkel, a mutual friend, introduced bassist Dylan Keefe to John Wozniak, and Marcy Playground began performing in New York City. The band was signed to Capitol in 1995, and they performed a series of New York City club dates that would be the first incarnation of Marcy Playground as a band. Personal problems between John and Jared reached a peak after a year of playing the New York music scene, and drummer Dan Reeser was brought in to replace Jared, whose interest was producing other artists. The self-titled album was released in 1997, and the first single, Poppies, released soon thereafter. The band emerged into the mainstream with the success of the single Sex and Candy. The song spent 15 weeks at #1 on the Billboard Modern Rock chart. The album is quiet and minimalist in tone. Wozniak's songs run in different styles. Some are more modern folk music. Many have undertones reminiscent of children's songs. The blurred sound of psychedelia makes appearances as well. And then there are the songs that are just clear rock and roll. The album went platinum and managed to spawn two other singles, St. Joe on the School Bus that we've listened to today, and Sherry Fraser. St. Joe on the School Bus managed to reach #8 on the U.S. modern rock tracks, and #30 on the mainstream rock tracks. The band would go on to release 5 more albums: 1999's Shapeshifter, 2004's MP3, 2009's Leaving Wonderland in a Fit of Rage, 2010's Indaba remixes from Wonderland, and their final album, Lunch, Recess, and Detention, released in 2012, sticking with that school-like theme. Marcy Playground, the debut, not the band, garnered mixed reception from music critics. Ronan Monroe of NME said that what is surprising is how enjoyable this window on Wozniak's soul is. His lazy drawl and gentle melodies coating his misery in a pop sheen. The mood remains resolutely downbeat, but the angst is not imposing. James P. Wisdom of, you guessed it, Pitchfork, stated that Marcy Playground was the most soothingly mellow and pleasant thing I have heard in a long time. However, as indicated, the reviews were mixed, as Dan Weiss of LA Weekly deemed it the 12th worst album of the 1990s, opining that aside from the singles Sex and Candy and St. Joe on the School Bus, the album is folksy, opiate-obsessed bullshit. To be fair, like it or hate it, that was most of the rock album's MO in the 1990s. So I can only imagine how long his list of worst albums of the 1990s really was. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's when you get to 10, I mean, why keep going? You know,
Yeah, exactly.
but I've
Also,
also this. You
right.
mentioned the track "Poppies." That rung another bell, so I know that from somewhere. I couldn't hum it to you right now, but that's the tune I think I've heard by them.
Oh, interest. That kind of blows my mind because though it was the first single, it was completely overshadowed by Sex and Candy, the one that spent 15 weeks at #1. That was the real popular song that I think to some degree did translate across the sea, maybe not in England, but I
Could
think
have
in other
done.
countries. But hey, that's really cool and interesting that Poppies is the one you
Yeah,
think or most sure that you've probably heard. Um,
yeah.
yeah, and back to the reviewer. Like, if you're reviewing 90s rock albums and you take offense to opiates being referenced, what the fuck are you even doing? Like, why'd you sign up to do that list? You know?
Yeah. Just wait
Um,
till you listen to stuff from the 60s. I mean, Jesus,
yeah,
blow
except
his
we're
mind.
really both, yeah, decades in there in between as well. But yeah, odd. In 2022, Adam Grundy of Chorus FM wrote an article celebrating the album's 25th anniversary after it was released, and wrote this of the track we listened to today. One of my favorites from this album comes in the form of St. Joe and the School Bus. That features a great bass line that really helps the song progress nicely. The brutal lyrics of St. Joe. He said he's never been dressed up like a woman. St. Joe, they said your dad is gay. They said your mom, she's a whore. They said it till you were raw. They said your mom, she's a bore. They made her beg. Reminds me of of playground bullies shouting out obscenities at the uncool kids and making their life a living hell. The song, much like most of the material found on the debut, unfolds like a story and brings new complexities to each lyric. So, since Grundy touched on those lyrics in his article, let's do a deeper dive right now. St. Joe, he said he's never been dressed up like a woman. St. Joe, they said your dad is gay. They said your mom, she's a whore. And they said it till you were raw. They said your mom, she's a bore. They made her beg them for more. My Aunt Mary, Aunt Mary says they have the darkness there in their eyes. And I just love the way his voice does this little like lilt like darkness there in their eyes. Just the way it resolves on their in their eyes. I just like that so much. St. Joe, he said he's never been made up like a woman. St. Joe, the time is coming when Mary never will return, when Mary never will come back here. Yeah, Mary never will return. Oh, Mary, please come home. Oh, my Aunt Mary, Aunt Mary says they have the darkness there in their eyes. Oh, my Aunt Mary, Aunt Mary says they have the darkness there. They have the family disease. They have the darkness there in their minds. So, in the liner notes affiliated with the song, Wozniak, the band's frontman, states, this song is about being picked on. However, in a Song Facts interview, he would go on and explain and expand on that a little bit in further detail. I was bullied as a kid, and for a little period there, I think I probably started bullying kids because I was bullied. And so I understand it. I don't know if it's a result of the bullying, but I got into a lot of fights after a while because I didn't like people getting in my face when I was young or getting in my friends' faces. And I'm Irish and Polish, so I got into a lot of fights. But it started with just being getting picked on. Both the theme and the timing of this song are quite apropos. This is something that like I've always observed, and like in the immediate wake of its release, I didn't. But a few years later, I looked back and kind of reflected on it and said, "Oh fuck." Um, it was released in 1997 and garnered a lot of popularity in 1998, the following and full year. Just 1 year before America's first mass school shooting, the Columbine incident in
Yeah.
1999 in Colorado. So while this track doesn't discuss or allude to revenge taken by those who were bullied, it does clearly illustrate the kind of behavior and resulting isolationism that can lead to such tragic events that have only become more pervasive since Columbine. And as I just mentioned, in the wake of like, a year or two of this thing having been released, that's when mass shootings and specifically school mass shootings became more commonplace here in the States. I don't want to chalk something that serious and that severe up to just one root cause, but surely this idea of normalizing or accepting bullying, especially something like, look, yeah, it sucks being told you have a big nose or your eyes are too far apart. But when it comes to these kind of attacks at an age of such vulnerability, when sexuality is just being understood and honestly just coming to life in an individual, to prey on that and take advantage of that and to ridicule based on that, mostly when it's not even true, and even if it is, that's no excuse to put someone down on just because of an attribute of theirs, is certainly got to be fuel or fodder to this kind of feeling that broods within individuals who then carry out these heinous attack. And I'm not giving them, and pardon the pun here, a hall pass to do those kind of things. It's wrong 100% of the time. But if you want to know how one gets to where they feel like that's their only way to deal with things, look no further than to being treated like this.
Yeah.
So
You will get cause of the fact, but you also get opportunity. Like school shootings don't really happen in this country for a
yeah,
good
yeah,
reason.
yeah. Well, that's a whole nother laws and
Yeah.
a populace who is willing to see things and understand how they are and to do things to mitigate the possibility of said acts. Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. And I agree with you. But if you think you're going to get a majority of people here to get on board with that, we're all a bit naive. I wish that wasn't the case, and I will firmly, argue against it. But it's a hard fact of life here.
The interesting thing as well is you think about it now, I think the opportunities for bullying digitally as well are just even
Yeah, it's only
more
mushroom.
manifold. Yeah. And I think about the shady shit that I did when I was 17 or whatever, and thank God nobody found out about that.
Right, yeah, yeah. The era of like social media and all that shit just being instantly tweeted out or, put on blast on some platform or another. Yeah, man. Scary
And
stuff.
your mistakes are there forever as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. hmm Yeah,
Yeah.
it's weird. Oftentimes we think about the celebrity. Like, oh, can you imagine if Michael Jordan had played in the era of social media, and all of these like the kind of scrutiny that they would go under. And I think that that's so vapid and who gives a fuck. Think about children whose brains are still developing having to grow up and that's a bigger thing to discuss and a more complex and more something that has more weight and can have a larger effect on society is that not like oh god can you imagine if Babe Ruth had Facebook or some shit like that, like get the fuck out of here. It's crazy that kids are born and then have iPads stuck in their hands and then have Facebooks when they're in elementary school and cell phones by the time they're in middle school. That's crazy to me. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when it all comes down to the mechanisms, they differ over the years, but when it comes down to it, I mean, there are some people who it is it's hate to say this, but it's almost a character flaw that they will, seek to pick on other people. It's usually based out of fear.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, exactly. Or
and
like
also,
Ian, who are having been bullied themselves by either a family member or their peers. It's the
yeah,
same.
I say abuse gets handed down, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Whether
yeah,
it's physical, psychological, sexual, if you've had that to you, you're so many times more likely to hand it down to somebody else,
exactly. Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah. Well, yeah, heavy lyrical content and theme to
Yeah,
this song.
really interesting.
But yeah, but I think very interesting and like it's just so weird that it was like a year and a half before the floodgates sort of opened on on those kind of awful things happening in this country. So I've always looked back at the song and been like, man, it was almost like a precursor or like a predictor, a forecast of what might be ahead. Underscoring this issue. So yeah, interesting stuff. I'm really glad you gave it a listen. I'm glad the lyrics stood out to you. Yeah, go ahead, John.
Have you ever seen, just to popped into my head there, have you ever seen the film If by Lindsay Anderson?
I don't think I have. No.
It's a classic British cinema film. Malcolm McDowell, him of Clockwork Orange and other fame.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
It's a schoolboy at public school, and at the end of it, they manage to get the guns from the cadets and turn it on the school themselves.
Oh
And
wow.
there's this massive shoot up in the school. And yeah, it's just, I mean, that was like 1970,
Uh-huh.
71, 72, somewhere around there. That's when that film was made. And it was very much almost in like a fantasy, the end bit. It doesn't feel completely like real. Um,
Right.
that just popped into my head when you were just talking about Columbine and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
That was in the film, 25 at least years before.
Before you that
Yeah,
stuff.
interesting. Anyway.
Yeah, it is. It is. God, we need to address that. Anyway, folks out there in the listening audience, please let us know what you thought of Saint Joe on the Bus by Marcy Playground. If there's other stuff by these guys that we should check out on the channel, please feel free to shout it down in the comments field below. Any thoughts on what we discussed today or anything, other bands, songs we should check out, pop it down there. We love hearing from you guys. Please, if you haven't, think about liking, sharing, and or subscribing to the channel. We really would appreciate it. Only takes a couple moments of your time, but it goes a long way in helping us here at the channel grow. So thank you in advance for any and all of those things. And hopefully John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next installment of the Audiophiles. We'll see you later, guys.